I'd be curious, is anyone familiar with the term, the paradox of choice? Has anyone heard this before? Good, I brought it up 8 weeks ago, so everyone should say yes. But the paradox of choice is coined by psychologists that have named this thing that we deal with as Western Americans in the culture that we live in currently, where we have so many choices. Have you ever been on Amazon before? Have you ever walked into a grocery store and been overwhelmed? Have you ever gone in for a single shirt at TJ Maxx and you're just not sure what to do? Now, there's very light things like that, and then there's larger things. There's ways of trying to define ourselves. There's identity. There's ways of trying to understand our orientation, whether it be our beliefs, whether it be our sexuality, whether it be the way we relate to others, the family that we're a part of or not. I mean, we can keep going down how this paradox of choice is working in and through us all of the time. And what they're saying, while we strive for more choice, more options, the better, right? It actually ends up leaving us more anxious. We actually find ourselves regretting more of our decisions. We become actually paralyzed, and we waste a lot of time, energy, and resources on the choices that we try to make the best or the ones that we've messed up on, and we think, man, I could have made a better choice. So over and over again, we find ourselves, the research is showing that we are becoming more anxious because of the amount of choice that we have. Now, why do I bring that up? Here this morning, as we talk about the life of Jesus, he counters this heavily. He actually says the opposite, which I'll warn you ahead of time, this won't feel good. This will actually feel like the way that it should not be, based on the way that you normally experience life, based on the way that I normally experience life. This does not make sense to your brain and to your emotions. I appreciate John Stott, who said, Jesus will not allow us the comfortable solutions we propose. Instead, he insists that ultimately there is only one choice because there are only two possibilities to choose from. Did you already feel yourself buck against that? No, there's more than two. There's not just two options, instantly. Inside of you and I is a desire and an openness to more and more choice. So today we're going to wrap up the Genius of Jesus, the series we've been in now since about the beginning of September, where we're exploring the Sermon on the Mount. If you're new to church, if you're new to faith, if you're not sure what you believe or what you think, this is a phenomenal place to start to try and understand what Jesus most often talked about. Many would say that this is his best hits. The way in which it's articulated is that this actually would have spanned over a number of days, but we find this Sermon on the Mount in chapters 5 through 7 of the book of Matthew. Matthew was one of the friends of Jesus, the students of Jesus. They captured the life of Jesus and wrote it into the New Testament, the first book in the New Testament. And in that, as we're looking at that, he captures a number of things. If you're stepping in right now, it's like going to the movie that starts with the ending, and then it does the whole entire movie is bringing you back to get back to the ending that you started with. I'm going to try to do that just for a second because a lot of this will be confusing if we don't at least do this. And where this starts, Jesus enters the scene. And he starts to do things that people are profound by, that he is healing people, he is casting out demons, he is doing things that no ordinary person was doing, and he was bringing something that he calls the kingdom of God here on earth. The idea that God's active rule and reign, if God was having his way ultimately, here's the way things would look like. People would be restored in their identity. People would be healed of sickness. People would be cast out of demons. We could also consider that the things that consume our mind and our hearts and our souls that are not of God. And then he goes on to invite people to follow him. He walks past a group of fishermen and he says, drop your nets and follow me. He's inviting people to join this thing that he started. And then he climbs onto a mountainside with a group of people, more like a small hill. We could think about the outskirts of Clovis. And up upon that, he starts to deliver this Sermon on the Mount. And he starts with the blessings of what it means to enter this kingdom. And he says things that do not make sense. For a group that thought that entering into heaven was for the religiously stout, those who knew what they were doing, those who knew the law, those that dressed well and had their lives put together, those that could look at others and say they do not have figured out, he said, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. He goes on to say this over and over again, and everyone is sitting there saying, this does not make sense. So the poor and the weak and those that aren't able to lift themselves up and the humble and those that desire peace and are going to work towards it, those are the people that inherit the kingdom, not the ones who have it all put together, not the ones that ultimately have power, not the ones whose life always goes their way. And then out of that, he says that those that are Christians should live a different life that looks like a couple of things. One, the main one would be salt and light. Salt was something that would preserve, that would give flavor to things. Christians, the group of people, are to preserve something that God is doing. It's supposed to give flavor to life. We're also supposed to walk and join the light of God that pushes out darkness. And if we're doing that, he then invites us to a series of ways of being beyond our actions. He talks about anger, he talks about lust, he talks about adultery. And one of the things he says, if we take anger, for example, he says, if you have anger in your heart, you have essentially done the equivalent of murdering someone. Now, is he saying that when you have anger, someone dies? No, that's not what he's saying. What he is saying, though, is if at the end of the day you said, man, I didn't murder anyone, I did pretty well. If that's the measurement, that's a pretty low bar of what it means to live in this life of the kingdom. So what he's saying is, are you actually open to your life being examined, your heart being examined, and is your heart actually living in a way that is bringing goodness? He does that with anger, lust, and adultery. He then talks about these people being people who could turn the other cheek. Sometimes we think that might mean being a doormat. That if someone slaps us on one side, what he was doing is he was giving a metaphor for what it means to draw someone into a different way of life. If you turn the other cheek, you now ask them to humiliate themselves in culture. And it's a way of us being to say, we are not going to fight violence with violence. We're going to be people that invite people towards the goodness of God, and he does that through a series of ways of being. And then he gets to the religious people who like to give and want to be notify others that they give to the poor. Those that pray out loud and have all their words put together. Those that fast and look like they're working so hard at being spiritual. And what he says is those people will have their applause. If that's the recognition you're looking from other people, if you're religious is for the sake of feeling good about yourself and so that other people see you in a certain way, good job, you've got it. But you will miss out on the way that God has invited you into life. And then he works his way through a series of things, ultimately to get to the idea of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. What if you and I lived that way? What if that was a thought as we entered our workplace? What if that was a thought as we woke up in the morning and we entered to the breakfast table with our roommate or our family? What if that was a thought when we went into hard conversations? What if that was a thought of when we treated people who vote differently politically? What if that was a thought that just guided our life? It wouldn't perfect everything, but my gosh, would it make a lot of things better, just out of simple wisdom. And out of this, as he's talking, one of the things we've been asking, the genius of Jesus, is do we see Jesus as our teacher? There's a lot of us in the room who have professed him as Lord and Savior. He is a very big deal in our life, but sometimes we don't even take his simple teachings and say yes to them and allow them to guide our life. And many would say that Jesus is a genius. He actually could deal best with the way life really is. And you and I are invited into that same way of being. All of that to get to the end of the Sermon on the Mount. He says this, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. I can remember entering into high school, and my parents had a really good idea. They said, Ryan, we will pay you an allowance to not have a girlfriend. Have we talked about this one before? See, it was a good idea. My mom's probably watching. Thanks, Mom, for that. And I had two choices, to not have a girlfriend or to have a girlfriend. Ultimately, were my parents going to know about it is what it came down to. Now, me being one more on the rebellious side, I chose that, well, I'm just going to hide it and just do whatever I want. Because what do my parents know? Why would they're trying to constrain me. Do you know that I like options? Like, you don't get to take my options away and the choices that I have and all those things. And so I chose to date. Why I bring that up is because what Jesus ends up saying here is that there's two choices for those who have entered the kingdom. What he's not necessarily talking about here, and I don't have time to fully go into it, is that he's not talking about those who are going to heaven when they die or hell when they die, which again is a whole other conversation. He's not necessarily talking about their eternal destination. He's inviting people, his disciples, those who are saying yes to the kingdom, to live in a certain way. Those already in, being invited further in. And one of those is to choose the narrow gate. What I can tell you from my own personal experience is that the other way led to great destruction. My choices, going off of what I most desired inside, led to destruction. The straight path, now it's not S-T-R-A-I-G-H-T, it's S-T-R-A-I-T. So it's not talking about that it's actually straight from south to north. It's straight in that it provides constraint. It actually squeezes upon you. It binds you together in a certain way. Again, why this idea of not having choice is uncomfortable. That I feel restricted. I feel like I don't just get to do what I want to do all the time. That I actually have to live by something else. What my parents were doing were constraining me. But would that not have actually been a better way forward? Would there not have been more peace in my life? Would there not have been less destruction in relationships? Would there not have been less shame and less guilt? We can keep going down this list. What Jesus seems to be doing is inviting every single person who have said yes to him to say, hey, I have a way of life for you. It's going to feel tight. It's going to feel narrow. It's not going to be everything that you think you want. But I want to give you life. I have come to give you something through my own life, through my teachings, through my ways, something that you otherwise could not achieve on your own. What is the narrow way? It is a way of conflict. It means a fight, a struggle. It means to overcome the world, flesh, and the devil. It means overcoming temptation. It means to forgive rather than hold a grudge. It means to be sexually pure as opposed to falling into sexual sin. It means to respect God's name and not use his name to increase your own credibility. It means to live a life of not judging and pointing the finger. It also means not looking over your shoulder to be seen of men, to be in fear of what people think. It means to put personal integrity above approval of people, to be willing to face persecution, however fierce. In a world, the narrow way is a way of conflict. Ouch. Again, I don't know about you. This is what I love about Christianity, is they don't just say a bunch of things that you and I want to hear to then invite you into life with God. They're actually saying, are you ready for this? I don't think you know what you've signed up for. If you're considering this way of life with God, let me warn you on the forefront. This is not just for you, but it is for you. He is not here just to make our life better, but I guarantee that your life can become better in and through life with Jesus. But this is a way of choice, and what he's done, which I'm so thankful for. Man, I had someone helping me look for flights, and I got a flight to Pittsburgh in February for something. I hate looking for flights. Because as I get on there, there's so many options, and then you're like, do you go through Google? Do you go through Expedia? Do you use the points or the points worth, the dollar value? Like, you can just keep going down this whole thing. And what I was so thankful for is like, hey, can you just figure out my flights for February? I can't even like do this. And what they were doing is just offering me like two choices at the end. Hey, you can either leave at this time on Friday or this time. What do you want to do? Well, that time. This was so easy. This was so helpful. I didn't have to think about it. In a way, Jesus is helping you and I narrow down from the overwhelming amount of choice that we have in our life and saying, may I help you? May I simplify this for you. This next piece you can come back to. I don't have time for it. It's the most confusing in this, so I chose to skip it. But he goes on to talk about false prophets. Watch out for them. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit you will recognize them. Do people pick grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Likewise, every good tree bears good fruit, but a good tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus, by their fruit, you will recognize them. There are many who come off as religious. There are many who are saying they speak on behalf of God. There are many who are offering you what you want to hear. And he is saying that if you watch over time, the fruit that gets produced from that, you may not want to actually pick it. And it takes time. It takes being with. It takes ultimately inviting Christians to a life of discernment, to thinking, to praying, to considering life with God, not just from the person that's saying things on behalf of God. And then he gets to this: not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. For any Christian in the room, I will just pause here for suspense. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Don't fully know what to do with that. He's saying something. Jesus does not mince words or say things just for the sake of it. He's communicating something. The Lord, Lord, the idea of saying it repeated back and forth is like an extra sense of emotion. Like, I really mean this. Do you not see how much I mean this? Only those who do the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, do we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. Again, how quickly us in the church can get caught up in religious activity, looking spiritual, trying to do spiritual things. Yet there's something that hasn't broken into us. There's something of a deeper place that we are not open to allowing God to change us, to transform us, to convict us, to make us more pure from the inside out. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. Every person standing there would know well the amount of destruction that water causes. They also know, as a good Jew, that God was the one who calmed the chaos, who brought everything into order. And they are reminded of the other cultures around them who would say that their gods are gods of destruction because of floods. And then we see a flood narrative in the early book of the scriptures to actually understand that God is one who has directed the rainbow, the bow, the archer, up towards himself, not at his people. This is a call back to the beginnings of our story, the beginnings of humanity. Now, phronimos, the Greek word here for wise. In the virtue tradition, this term refers to one who has learned through proactive to live prudently with discernment, and who not only knows the truth, but acts upon it. Matthew here stacks over and over again that not those who just believe or say this, but actually do what I'm teaching. You and I live a faith that is not just belief or ration or trying to understand it theologically, but to say, I've given myself to something, so therefore my feet will follow. Therefore my mouth will follow. Therefore my hands will follow. It is not to sit back and to just say that I believe in something else out there and one day it'll just end up making sense. Some of the imagery that happens here, that some of the those that will write commentaries on this, the idea here is that there is two circles. There's a large circle, and this idea would be that you've been invited to life with God. You have said yes to life with God. And then inside of that circle is another circle. And that is the kingdom of God that you and I get to experience now. It's not something that has to fully wait, though in so many ways it will fully wait. We don't experience all peace and joy and happiness. Right now, we still live lives that experience chaos and destruction and grief, all those things. But he's saying inside of the life in which you've received from me, you can choose to come further with me. You can participate more fully in the ways I've intended life to be. So first, it shows that hearing the truth is not enough. Second, these words of Jesus demonstrate that trials will come. Third, the principles of the Sermon on the Mount ensure not only a reward in heaven, but a greater faith and anointing here below. God is inviting every single one of you to a life with him that acts now, that can experience hope now, that can experience joy now. What it asks of you and I, though, is something. It asks us to choose, to make a choice, to say yes to the teachings and the ways of Jesus as he has said them, as others have written them. That what we're doing here is not passively waiting for the end to come near. We are inviting that end and the beyond the end to break in now, to come here today. The onward world that wants something different is looking to the church and saying, can you actually be different than us? But if it's just filled with the same chaos and the same lies and the same gossip and the same immorality, if it's just filled with the same stuff, why would anyone want to say yes to the church? It's not attractive. It does not offer something different. Here's my last piece, and then we're going to go into baptisms. A sociologist, Neil Postman, says this: the tie between information and action has been severed. Information is now a commodity that can be sought and sold, or used as a form of entertainment, or worn like a garment to enhance one's status. It comes indiscriminately, directed at no one in particular, disconnected from usefulness. We are glutted with information, drowning in information, have no control over it, don't know what to do with it. What he's referring to is technology, and the earliest technology that he's referring to is the telegraph. That an electronic message could be sent across a very long distance in a quick period of time. What he's saying is before that, people lived in cities of hundreds of maybe thousands of people. And when something went wrong, what could you do? You could do something. If something burnt down, if someone fell, if whatever it is, whatever was wrong, you could do. Since the telegraph, you're now receiving information all the way over to a place in which you can't what? You can't do. You can't act. How many things are overwhelming you right now in life that you have no ability to do anything? I would offer most of it. We are filled with so much information. The translation to the life in Jesus is that we can know all about the scriptures. We can know all about the church. We can try to figure out all the things. And yet, that can just sit us fatly on our couch and not have to move a finger. And what the overwhelming amount of information does is it paralyzes us. Where what we've been called to is to look around us, our real life, the real zip code we live in, the real workplace we work. Like, we don't just cut off from the things that are hard and then we think about things that are far away. That's easier to do. We actually say, no, I'm here. God's placed me here. He's invited these people around me. This is the destruction and chaos that is happening. I am now invited in a new way to enter in now, to do something now, to act now. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching because he taught as one who had authority, not as their teachers of the law. As a rabbi, most would teach their students. They would call back to a different rabbi. You know the teachings of so-and-so, and they would repeat it. Jesus comes on the scene in a rabbinic model, and he says, I tell you, I came to say. He had an authority that no one had seen before. So he begs us to answer the question, who is the authority in your life? What is the authority in your life? What gets to say what you do with most of your time? Who gets to say how you show up in a room? Kicking into Matthew 8, when Jesus came down from the mountainside, large crowds followed him. And this is the same invitation that you and I have now.